I'd like to welcome everyone this morning and thank you so much for coming. My name is Jackie Dennison. This is Ann Shepard and Janice Music, and they are helping this morning. Janice is Mrs. Lee, and she will be speaking to us here shortly. First of all, before we get started, I would like to ask everyone to take a moment. We lost a very dear friend early this morning about 3 o'clock. Joe Adkins, he was commander of the Jonesboro camp. He portrayed Colonel Fulkerson, and he will be greatly missed. So if we can just take a minute for Joe. Thank you. Mrs. Lee is going to speak with us this morning on the etiquette of the tea, and when she is through, we will invite you to the table then.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It gives me great pleasure to travel down from Arlington to be with you today for tea. I'm so glad you're here.
That's right, I say. My Lord, kid.
I've been asked to speak with you about the correct etiquette of tea. And to do that, I'll use my teacup and a napkin from the table. Of course, in order to take tea, the first thing that we must do is remove our glove, especially the glove on the right hand, as that's what touches the teacup and any food that you may partake of. You can always put your right glove in your left hand and hold it. The history of tea began when a traveling salesman was going through China. He carried with him water and just a few supplies. When he was tired, he would stop by the road and rest, sometimes sleep. On this particular day, he leaned up against a little bush that was beside the road. He put his water in his little cup over the fire to sanitize it so that it would be clean to drink. And he fell asleep. When he woke, some of the leaves from the little bush behind his fire had fallen into his cup. Since that was the last water he had, he couldn't throw it away. So he drank it. And it was very good. Well, he collected some more leaves from that tree and some cuttings from the tree to take with him. And there began the use of tea. Now, having tea in the afternoon was started much later. Princess Anne, I believe it was, decided that there was a long space between the midday meal and the evening meal, which was usually after 7 o'clock. So she started having tea in her boudoir. And it was so it helped so much that she started inviting some of her friends in to have tea with her. Each of them thought it was a great idea, so they took the idea back to their own drawing rooms and their own parlors and began having tea. As soon as the word spread, it wasn't long until Americans began the same tradition. They didn't always have a lot of food to serve for tea, but they served the best that they had. Sometimes it might have been bread. If they had jam or molasses or honey, they would have used it. Butter. The more affluent, of course, served a greater variety of foods. When we speak of high tea is late afternoon. It includes everything you would have for a meal. Low tea is simple finger food to tide you over from one meal to the next. In order to take tea, it depends if it's served as buffet or if you're seated at table, and either is correct. If you take your cup and saucer from a buffet table, is there a spoon that I could use to demonstrate? This is all right. We're going to say this is a spoon. If you take your tea from a buffet table, you take tea first before you take any food. You pour the tea or receive the tea just a little over halfway in the cup. You never fill the cup completely full. The hostess usually pours tea. If you take it as a buffet, you would sit with your napkin spread. I don't have, this is a tea napkin, and you would open it completely. And the napkin never goes above your waist. It sits on your lap. The teacup and the saucer sits on there. Now, if you receive sugar in your tea, you want to stir. Never allow the teaspoon to clank against the cups. You hold it straight up. You swish back and forth gently. Do not make a noise with the teaspoon. When you have stirred your tea, remove your spoon, put it on the back of your saucer. At that time, you can take a drink of your tea. If you're seated, if it's buffet and you're seated with the teacup in your lap, you pick both up to chest level, thumb and first finger in the teacup handle, and lift it to your mouth. At the time you take a drink, you do not look out, you look into your cup. Take your drink, teacup back to the saucer, saucer back to your lap. If you are seated at table for tea, the teacup and saucer is placed on the table, and there you can leave the saucer on the table, simply lift the teacup, drink, and put the teacup back to your saucer on the table. You may have an extra plate with food. The food is always small when served at tea. If it's too large to take in one bite, you break it in two. The scones are broken in two. You will either have cream or jam or both on your scone. But you break it in two to a bite size, put the jam or cream on it, lift that one bite to your mouth. You do not put food back to your plate. Bite size, and you eat what is there. Tea is considered a delicate endeavor, and we treat it as such. You always use correct manners. And of course, it's about having fun. It's about enjoying being with your friends. And never let anything interfere with that. We want to have correct etiquette, correct manners, but above all, we want to enjoy being together. And it just gives me great pleasure to be here from Arlington. My husband, the General, will be here later today. I had hoped he could come by. He usually likes to give thanks over any food before we eat, but he has another battle. His presence must be, he must be there this morning, but after that, he'll be here sometime today. Are there any questions about Arlington or about tea? I could talk for a long, long time about Arlington. You know, it's my home. I was born there. I was married there. And 6 of my 7 children were born there. It was my first love. Even though I fell in love with my captain, the general, when I was 3 years old. But Arlington was always my home. I loved it dearly, and it broke my heart to leave. But I had to leave in order that my captain did not worry about my daughters and me, as we were there in Arlington, surrounded by Union troops on all sides. I left and was only able to see Arlington one more time. And it was a sad sight. But thank you for coming today. I will be around all day today. I'd love to talk with some of you individually. And I'm scheduled, I believe, to speak with the general. Is that correct? Miss Jackie, do you know? I believe I'm scheduled to speak with the general this afternoon. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. So we'd like to have you back then. That concludes my presentation, unless you'd like to have questions, or if you have something else you want me to talk about.
We have another 5 minutes. You would like to tell us what is happening in Arlington?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you leave Arlington and where did you go?
I left Arlington during the first part of the war, soon after the general accepted the commission to lead the Confederate Army, the Army of Virginia. When I left there, you know, we had 3 other plantations. And I went to the White House first, the White House plantation, not the White House in Washington, but White House plantation. And I went to each of my children's house for a while. I eventually wound up in Richmond on Franklin Street, where I lived until the end of the war. After the war ended and my captain came home, we stayed there for a little while, not very long, because we were never able to find peace there. We were inundated by people coming to the house that wanted to meet the general, that wanted to talk with him, that wanted to shake his hand, that wanted to give us things such as a loaf of bread, a jar of jam. But we left there thinking that we would settle on a small farm. You see, we had lost everything. We lost everything that I had inherited. And we thought we'd have a small farm and just spend the rest of our lives in peace and farming. The general always wanted to be a farmer. But then he was offered presidency of Lee College. And after a lot of thinking, we accepted that, and we moved to Lexington. We lived there for the rest of his life, the rest of our lives, actually. We had one daughter that died during the war. Our sons joined our Confederate soldiers. We lost 2 grandchildren during the war. And shortly after the war, my daughter Agnes died. It was soon after my captain passed. He came home from the college one day and sat down at the table. He returned thanks over the food and then just slumped over. And he never was able to talk with us after that. He lived through the night. At one time, we even brought Traveler to the window so that he could see, thinking that that might revive him, but it didn't. And he passed away. I was holding his hand and sitting by him. My daughters were there. Soon after that, Agnes died. Agnes was the daughter that had stayed with me and helped me as my debilitating illness became worse. I had rheumatoid arthritis. By the time the war started, I was already in a rolling chair. I could not walk. But it was a hard time during that war. It was something that no one should have to endure. Are there other questions? I'm happy to have one of my daughters here with me today. If she would stand, I'd like you to meet Annie. Thank you. Are there other questions? I know you're anxious to have tea. We're anxious to give you tea. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank Mrs. Lee for coming down from Arlington. She'll be here for a few days, and then she will travel back home. So we certainly appreciate her coming, and that you ladies could come and have tea with her today. We will have some period music here in a minute since our fiddler comes back. He's standing out there. So if you ladies would like to come to the table and partake of what we have, we'll be happy to serve.
Come, ladies. There has to be someone going first. And I might add, if you take a teacup and saucer from the table, please return it to the table. They're borrowed. Should we move the next step?
My head is so small that of course I like I thought I might use a half pin, but I thought once we turn it on, we got a whole here's my she and I had met to go to JVC, and Mike was off, so we all next week, so we can go to Wildcats, and she was work too, so I said it like that. I need to give you some money, don't I?
please don't do that.
All right, I want the change. If they do,
Things be,
oh, I know you do. I want the change. I know you do, but I want the change. Please give me 3 seconds. Okay, Sissy, I'll let you have it. Sorry, I'm not going to These
without the nuts. I didn't put any nuts in. I didn't put any nuts in because we have a lot of people that are allergic to nuts now, so.
I didn't see you in a few minutes.
Yeah, I knew you had to see you. I want to make sure.
Well, and I didn't
I'm terrible about that. I said, I'll deal with it. But I'm probably going to phone Yes, he might be supposed to on drugs there. And he's got one where he's doing a graduate program.
It's a little bit too big.
But he took up his son, Dawn, his best friend. And I think that he's going to get so there'll be somebody. Yeah, I've got that in front of me. It's good. So hopefully it won't be too much longer, but I told Mark I could kind of give it a call when I was on so we're stuff ready to go, Jack, because it's still kind of awkward. Yeah, but it's getting close.
My husband did not want.
Good to see you. Okay, guys.
Now y'all need to get up and dance visiting. We're in the hall tonight from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Meet all the ladies and come out and dance. We have a trio of musicians, including myself and and James Garland.
Well, I can't even make sound about
Calls, we don't know if we can figure it out.
maybe not desirable.
We're called the company B band. The reason for that is because we're the second in line.
I've forgotten about that.
Playing rhythm.
Well, see, this has all the you know, he cleaned the
That's
fire.
some experience, but I'd rather do it.
He said, that's exactly.
It's kind of hard to call when you got a fiddle.
I didn't know you could tell.
Corbin can fiddle though, so we'll let him fiddle and I'll call, and then he can call while I'm fiddling.
They can figure out that he put your finger in and he cleaned it, it's really weak, it sounds like that. He's still kind of mad at me. Well, we're reading this. Well, you know, you gotta get ten, just put some on this.
The tune, Arkansas Traveler, history about that, it's very interesting. It was around before the 1860s. It actually came about in the 1840s, during the time that a lot of Tennesseans were going to Texas. David Crockett was there. David Crockett had left from Congress and moved to Texas basically to start a new life. And he had couriers that moved back between Tennessee and Texas and sent messages back and forth between his home. And one courier was going through what's now Arkansas, stopped in Arkansas, and there was a little log cabin that had water dripping through the roof. It was raining, and the inside was and the traveler stopped at the door and said, "Oh, fiddler," he said, he says, "Call over." It says, "Raining." He says, and when it had to rain, it ain't leaking. And that's how the song Arkansas Traveler came about. David Crockett was a musicologist. He studied the music of the period, and he played fiddle. And so anybody that could collect the fiddle tune for him was right up his alley. So that was how Arkansas Traveler got back to Tennessee. This is it. Dixieland, yes, the same tune. Written different ways for different people. Yes, different person. That was, of course, a tune that I could probably play on my sleeve. Throughout the battles, just after a while your bow just flows. Your fingers just go to the notes. You don't even know it. In fact, there was an old man that was playing a fretless band. Somebody says, how do you know what notes to play? He says, that ain't no notes, you just play the thing. There ain't no notes on it, you just play You probably recognize this one. It came off the PBS series that was done in the 1990s. I stood in front of the television every night when it first came on to try to learn to play this thing. My wife was getting irritated, so I came home the third night into the series, and there was a little tape recorder sitting up on the television. And she was Cajun. And she didn't talk much. I said, what's this? She said, it's a tape recorder, John. I said, what is it for? She says, it's for you to take that song and go up to the part and play that thing. Because there ain't playing it in here anymore. That's the way I learned it.